So let me ask you about the Sydney Sweeney thing. Okay, a new jeans ad slammed as Nazi propaganda by the crazed woke mob. That's headline number one in Post from New York Post. And then again, Nazi propaganda, crazed woke mob over jeans pun. Everybody saying, we're so back. This is what they took from us. The memes. We got the blonde hair, blue-eyed girl next door shilling these jeans. People doing memes like this with the sun.
Yeah.
Honor.
It's like it's something that you've sort of pointed out many times for years, actually. And you've said that, like, like MAGA could be used as a weapon of deception if it was wanted to. And again, bringing it back to this neuroscience thing I'm talking about, like, what am I saying when I say to you that wokeism has a neurological basis, and everybody's like based atheists, libtards, anti-racists. It's clearly fake. We shouldn't do it and all this. But then you move over and you switch on this part of your brain and you develop this based tribal race God perspective, which is the kind of canonical version of the right in the abstract. But it does come with this caveat, this catch, which is its propensity towards cognitive dissonance. And this is a very, very interesting problem. Why? Because this cognitive dissonance is something that makes you close-minded to the group. It feeds into groupthink. And this is a problem for you on a personal level because it stops you thinking clearly. But it is a benefit because you participate in a group, you have the best chance to succeed in evolutionary struggle of life. This is why you have tribalism inside of you, because it's the way you succeed. You need a nation, you need a collective, you need collective political action. Now, the problem is, in advanced politics, you can take advantage of people who have these mechanisms in their head. If I can scare you and I can give you, I can dangle in front of you images of your identity, and it will trigger on this part of your brain that literally makes you stupid. It shuts off your brain and makes you cognitively dissonant. This is something that I can weaponize, definitely. And this sounds schizo, but this is actually like formally studied and done in American politics, because America is the most advanced democracy that's ever existed. And the American politics, they have the Southern strategies. This is talked about all the time. And this is the idea that in order to win the Southern states, to win the presidency, you need to play into their identity a little bit, their identity crisis. So they do a little bit of casual racism. This is what GOP do. They do this like kind of soft racism to stir up the anxieties of the white rednecks in the Republican in the Sun Belt. And they get them to sort of be like, like this guy's kind of winking to us that he's one of our guys. And they give you flickers of your identity, and then you get on board with him forcefully, and he just wins the presidency, and he can tell you whatever he wants. The second he gets into power, he does something else. And this is like the sleight of hand, the way the politics is done now, where it's identity control. It's what Starmer is doing in the UK. He's throwing crumbs to the right in the UK and sort of saying to them, look, I'll take care of this immigration thing, which is the source of their identity, and then they'll give up on the idea of getting their own sovereignty, and they'll fall for a false messiah, if you so will. And again, you're always pointing this out in your own terms that, like, yeah, Trump is doing this breadcrumbing for people. Like, you've got to be careful with this. And this is like a mechanism that makes sense, that you can go and you can do this. So the reason why I say this all with Sydney Sweeney is that beautiful girl, I'm sure she's lovely, but all this stuff you're seeing, the woke getting put away, this does seem like the sort of immune system of this. The system is finding a way of manufacturing consent now once again, and handing the anxious white Americans that voted for Trump, handing them the identity that they want, so that
this is the false savior. This is our false savior. Is that what you're kind of getting at there?
It's like if you're getting things that are reaffirming your identity from something that you would generally consider to be hostile and not sovereign, not representing you, there's probably something weird going on. There's probably something dodgy going on. And again, you've always been saying this. You've been pointing this out loads, that it's very easy to throw breadcrumbs, but then, like, in the back rooms, the people that the likes of Trump are talking to are not on your team at all, this type of thing. And so, you're getting this blonde girl, big tits, and like parade her around, and then you say America is saved. And it's like, that's not that. Sydney Sweeney's not going to save America. Like, what is going to save America is like a whole revolution in the concept of sovereignty. A counter elite would have to get into power and change the way the institutions are ran. And you even see someone like Musk. This happened to him. He got the breadcrumbs of his identity, which is to be a libertarian. And literally, this is one of the richest people in the world was told, we'll just let you in and you can audit the government and you can get, and then he gets closer and closer and closer. And then they kind of they do the sleight of hand and they're like, fuck off, dude, this is not for you, this type of thing. And he has a chimp out because of it, because his identity was tickled. And then when it came to getting the goods, they pulled the rug, this type of thing. So this is Sydney. It's good that at least you're getting a positive self-image. Obviously, in the psychological level, it's not demoralizing propaganda. That's great. But like, you have to get a little bit of the creeps off this a little bit. It's like I don't know, man. I don't know. They're trying to like nudge us a little bit, and maybe it's a Southern strategy thing, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, is this for them to sell jeans? Like, are they trying to sell jeans with this? You think a bunch of blonde girls are going to run out and want to buy jeans now? Is that what the point of this is? And it's funny, the chimp outs. Go ahead.
I would also see this as like things happening in elite culture, because like the shareholders of all these companies, it's not like necessarily the jeans company is an independent entity. Like if you look at Rumble or Twitter, they're owned by like all these investors. I think BlackRock owns like a significant amount of Twitter. I don't quite know the specifics on that, but like you would say, oh, BlackRock, this type of thing. But these big institutions would own all these. Like a lot of the DEI environmental stuff, the ESG, I think it's called, those standards for advertising, that was the woke advertising, that was all coming from these giant corporate shareholding systems that owned these shareholder things in the company. So then the shareholder meeting happens, and the CEO of the company was like, I want to sell jeans, but the shareholder says, well, we must ethically sell jeans by doing this. So what's happening in these boardrooms is they're now saying, yeah, we need to put the woke away. It was too much. It's caused this big riot. Like maybe it's like, maybe the Israelis are getting anxious about how it's stimulating all these leftist protesters or something like this, or maybe they're seeing the anxiety in the white Americans that they want to exploit and all, or they want to take advantage of, or something like this. Maybe that's the cynicalist way that you can read it. But that is I'd imagine what's going on. They're like, all right, America's identity should be white blonde, and if we want to retain our power, it's like a religious system. The European kings would follow Christianity, even though they're functionally like warrior pagans. They would offer Christianity because it gives them the divine right of kings. It gives them the mandate of heaven. It allows them to sustain their power. So they would use the religion to placate the people. And you wonder, is this it? Is this like the Southern strategy happening here? Give the people images that flatter them, that they like, give them big tits and blonde girls, and this will make them happy. And then there's going to be no discontent and this type of thing. And that would make sense, because it seems like there's a huge populist uprising. And maybe there's anxiety among the shareholders that they're losing the left, or the left are becoming more unstable. Like the left are assassinating people, and so the right seems like a very cozy clientele to kind of work in this way. So it makes you wonder, like maybe it's more sincere, but it's good to be skeptical is all I'd say. Good to not be a trick, not be an idiot.
This Jewish comedian here they do a pun on jeans. I mean, you could see how this would be triggering and trying to create a social media buzz and get everybody talking, thinking about the brand.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sidney Sweeney, Asperger's genes.
So great genes, talking about inherited traits. People are calling it eugenics. Like this Jewish comedian says, like in a Nazi way, totally. 105,000 likes. All these videos of a bunch of girls that look like this seething. Let's listen to this one too.
Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not, but it's...
So the eagle, like the fascists, like the Germans, like the Romans. This is the eagle of Edom, by the way. Interesting enough.
Still really shocking. Like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda. Should we be surprised?
Is she wrong? I don't think she's wrong, to be honest. And that's why we all love it so much. So what is going on here? Guess what, guys? The CEO's Jewish and works with Chabad Lubavitch. Yeah, I'm going to get there in a second. Yeah. Here, I'll just, since I mentioned it.
American Eagle, what's her name? Oh my God, that's crazy. Jesus.
Look. American Eagle now has a mezuzah at its Times Square flagship office. The apparel brand CEO J.L. Shottenstein is well known for his charitable Jewish contributions, including to Chabad Lubavitch.
That's crazy. So damn. So it must be that's interesting. So the psychology of the shareholders then is that they are sitting down there and saying like they need a source of consent. They need the Americans to be on their side. And so they want to give them, because what they've done for the last while is the woke energy has just bashed the American identity and humiliated it and crushed it into the ground. And so they're now like literally switching stances because they want to get that identity more affirmative and get people, the white Americans to feel more positive about them, the right, basically. So yeah, it could be a Southern strategy to manufacture consent or something like that. And you might see this more and more. It is actually like an interesting problem then, because like a lot of people say, well, this is what we want. We don't want to be demoralized for being blonde or whatever. But maybe your problem is that you're not sovereign, and that's the big red pill. But I'm not an American, so I cannot comment on that. But
it's funny how
issues in Ireland.
Yeah, it's crazy how like the narrative everywhere is this is Nazi propaganda. It's eugenics, and then it's actually so the narrative is evil white America, right? And then it turns out that it's a Chabad connected Jewish CEO that's running the company. Isn't that interesting?
It's very bizarre, yeah. It's very bizarre. Like the thing that makes me think is like, what I'm trying to describe again when I bring up the neuroscience is that there's mechanisms in our heads that manipulate our morality and manipulate our identity. And we've just gone through the woke culture war, which was predicated on morality and identity. And it was a really traumatizing experience that has significantly changed the entire shape of our civilization. And I look at this and I try to follow its conclusions and say, well, listen, there's these mechanisms in our head that actually can be manipulated, as I said. And it also makes me wonder then is that like have advanced political actors been able to manipulate this for a long time? For example, the Wall Street, you remember that famous graph where Occupy Wall Street kicked up with the left? Remember, this happens. So Occupy Wall Street kicked up with the left in like 2010 or something. I was too young to really understand what's going on, but I remember that happening. And right after that, that's where you see the arrival of all the woke stuff, because they start to do this identity politics. Why? Because they're dissolving the left's anti-capitalist big bank energy, and they absorbed it into this identity thing. So it's almost like these really powerful Wall Street actors they're actually skilled at politics. They're really good at this, and they understand that there's an identity crisis within the left, which is based on these minority ideas. So they were able to push into that and affirm that identity of being minorities and take advantage of that, and then dissolve the left's capitalist energy going after the banks and turn them into this unbelievably powerful corporate force that allowed them to just do very well. And now that beast has become a problem. So maybe they're pivoting back and they're doing the same thing. They're doing a Southern strategy now on the right and flattering that identity so that they can turn it into a useful political force, which they'll use for the next 10 years. And then when that runs out, they'll like switch back to that. And you're kind of like dancing between the two forces this way. And what they're intuitively doing, because they're professional, so they're very skilled. They probably don't understand this, but intuitively they're like triggering, they're turning this thing off, turning it on, depending on which side they're going, just so they can reinforce that identity and use it to harvest consent. So maybe that
it's Chabad connected Jewish CEO injecting the Nazi eugenicist to trigger both sides. So that's what's at the forefront of the zeitgeist and like our culture with this ad campaign. And look, this cartoon breaks it down perfectly. The woke left saying, if you like that, you're a fascist. And then the young Gen Z guy, Dad, I think I'm a fascist.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, do you think then that like the right are going to have a up ramp now for the next while where you like being right wing will be like permissed? Or do you think there's going to be like a censorship snapback at some point?
They're using it as the villain and depicting America as the American eagle, the Edom white supremacist Nazi like America.
So I'm suggesting
that's what I think. That's what I think this is doing.
So I'm suggesting that they're using it to harvest consent by giving white Americans a positive identity, so that they're like on board. Do you think it's actually not? That's even too far. You're just sort of saying that they're just causing chaos and rallying up the left a little bit more and trying to
rallying both sides on that issue. Exactly.
And so they're trying to move the left's attention away from, protesting in universities and move their attention more towards just thinking, like, go back to being about the giving out about Nazi.
Stop focusing on Israel and Palestine. It's the Nazis you got to worry about. Exactly. That's what it's getting the left to do. And look, this organization donates more than $200,000 to Chabad in 2020. American Eagle has given Chabad access to the retail giant's gigantic advertising screens in Times Square. Like they're deeply connected. And then they come out with Sydney Sweeney, good jeans, which is a play on an old advertising campaign, by the way, with what's her name?
That's so crazy. That's so strange.
Look, here's the old one that they redid.
The secret of life lies hidden.
This is Brook Shields, and apparently she was like young when she did this.
Genes. The secret of life lies hidden in the genetic code. Genes are fundamental in determining the characteristics of an individual and passing on these characteristics to succeeding generations. Occasionally, certain conditions produce a structural change in the gene, which will bring about the process of evolution. This may occur in one or more of the following ways. Firstly, by selective mating, in which a single gene type proves superior in transmitting its genes to future generations. Secondly, by gene drift.
This is what we need to teach Christians that evolution is true, right here. Ads like this.
Certain genes may fade away, while other genes persist. And finally, by natural selection, which filters out those genes better equipped than others to endure in the environment. This may result in the origin
This is Nazi
of an entirely
propaganda.
new species. Which brings us to Calvin.
When was this?
And the survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest. I'm not sure
Calvin
what year it
Klein.
was, but
That's
pretty
strange.
amazing. 1980. Calvin Klein, who was Jewish also. Levi also Jewish. Interesting enough. Levi's, Calvin Klein, and then now American Eagle.
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, is there like, yeah, like that's an interesting question. So why is that getting pushed that way? Because like that is it's a total inversion of their instinct. So I like it's very bizarre. I would imagine I see it as the Southern strategy thing, and yeah, like there's maybe this idea that the woke was an overreach situation, so it's winding it all back and throwing bones. But you're suggesting, as you said, like it's chaos, something like that. And it's like what I noticed this in Ireland too. It's something that the Irish have to watch for, because there is this feeling now that the right wing populist energy is rising, and it's just so dangerous to think that you're in control of these movements and it's all working this way, when it can be very easily used as a Southern strategy to take advantage of your energy and then absorb it, and then all your political will gets spent in like a misdirection. That's really the tragedy of it. This is why you have to be actually quite conscious of this. I guess what I'm saying, again, when I bring up this neuroscience, is that you have this mechanism in your brain that creates cognitive dissonance. So you're actually very vulnerable to this specific type of stuff, where your identity can be easily manipulated, left or right. And it's like, to be self-aware, to know when that's happening, is very important.
Here's your Chabad Lubavitch, Sydney Sweeney vulnerability to the male mind right now. Sydney Sweeney reading you the Bible.
I think Sydney.
This makes me love Jesus.
Chronicles, chapter 21, verses 14 to 15. Behold, with a great plague will the Lord smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy goods.
Oh my God, that's talking about what God's going to do to Edom. She's reading the anti-Edom verses? Are you kidding me?
No way, really?
Yeah.
And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of the sickness day by day. Thy bowels fall out by reason.
Oh yeah, she's in a movie where she's a nun.
Oh my days.
Crazy.
Yeah. It really makes you wonder. Well, like I guess that's the thing I'd ask you, is that you've been skeptical of the right movement, I guess you could say, in many ways, because you think there's a lot of contradictions inside of it that aren't resolved, and so you're not.
Yeah, it's kosher. It's Jewish. Opposition to the Jews and Zionism is, if it's Christian, it's neo-Judaism opposing Judaism. So it's within the Torah Yahweh plantation.
And where do you see all this going then? Like, obviously there has been an upswing in all this energy. Like, do you see it as it's just going to peter out? What do you see? It's
going to be used for the crackdown, the pretext of the big crackdown and the downfall of the West, if they have their way.
And what do you mean by the crackdown? Like
that's what this is. The Chabad company putting out the hot blonde girl talking about jeans. That's what this is. Everybody kvetching exactly like they knew they would. They purposely tried to trigger it, and they knew all the right wing would love it and eat it up and do the memes and love her and stuff. Like here's another leftist breakdown.
What does this American Eagle, Sydney Sweeney jeans campaign have to do with not just race, but soap and the current political climate? I'm Sayantani, an author of middle grade and YA books, which I mostly talk about on this app, but I am also a professor of something called narrative medicine. So I teach a lot about race, health, and narrative. And that is exactly why this ad is in my particular wheelhouse and why I will be putting it on my syllabus in the fall.
Oh my God. This is going on the syllabus. Here's the other big one.
Out loud, but was it ever true? They're literally saying the quiet part out loud, but was it ever truly?
Who's they, by the way? Is it the Nazis doing this, or is this Chabad Lubavitch and Shottenstein that's putting this out? But who's taking the blame?
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's a really good point. And it goes to show you the kind of ignorance on both sides, because the left, they abstract some random they, which they assume is the white man. And then the right like think that this is just the corporations are suddenly becoming red pilled. What is the meme? Oh, they're going broke because they went woke, so now they're going to all put Sydney Sweeney because they want to make money again. And then you think, wait a second, I don't know. Yeah, interesting.
Quiet when you're wearing dumbass merch like this. I mean, really, make America great again. When was America ever great? Their definition of greatness was when this country was full of white supremacists and that slavery still existed. And now we have this interesting ad with a play on words where we pass on blue genes to those genetically with blue eyes. I mean, it's no accident that Sydney Sweeney's initials are SS.
Are the SS? Oh my days!
No coincidence. The Jews planned every little detail. Like, is that what she's saying?
Very interesting. Yeah.
Really saying the
That's
quiet part
crazy.
out loud, but was it ever truly quiet when you're wearing
Okay.
mass merch like
The SS. Here's another crazy one. I want to hear this one too. Oh, so it's not just the CEO, J.L. Shottenstein, who the chat said that I had covered before. The name sounded familiar, that I covered before. Apparently he's linked to LeBron James, is what they said. Largest donor to Jewish causes, and the company was founded by Mark and Jerry Silverman.
Yeah.
What was the other one I wanted to show? This one.
Running their ad department. And I just hate when
Did American Eagle just run an ad for eugenics?
Genes are passed down.
To blonde-haired blue.
My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney, Asbury Canes.
Totally just talking about denim, right? Just
No, obviously not.
Blue-eyed woman explaining how her good genes gave her personality and purity. I mean, are we really
Yep.
going to pretend that this isn't a little fashy coded? Look, I'm not saying that Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah. We're not pretending. It's clearly fashy coded, as she says.
Interesting.
But it was put out by a Habadnik, basically.
It's like your head's been. So this is it's crazy. I was saying to you earlier that I had a little bit of hesitation after the Trump win, and my instincts are sort of saying it. And like, I think this is. I kind of felt, yeah, that there's something just a little bit off. You know, it seems like things were just too glistening clean, squeaky clean, and it's kind of like this type of stuff where you're like, this doesn't feel good. It feels like, yeah, someone has ripped your face off and they're not wearing it, type thing. And it's like they're using your identity in order to wage grand political. It's like Edward Bernays, you know, was a master in psychological warfare and control, and it's all about understanding these weak points. This is what I'm saying. I point out these neuroscientific mechanisms. I'm so happy. I'm so proud that I studied these because I think they're so interesting. And these people are professionals. Bernays is a professional, so they probably arrive at these things intuitively, and they just know what things to poke at in order to set this stuff off and to get these identities and these things in gear. And it seems like, yeah, this could be it. That like it's like, all right, rile and rally up this identity for the next while, and it will harvest consent. It will harvest this giant mob of like magatards who think, like, literally watch this, and they'll get in this dialectic where they're saying like, well, whatever, like fascism is like, you know, it's like totally cool. You see that guy who went on? I saw him on Twitter, and he went to some debate against the woke guy. And the woke guy was like, well, what about immigrants? Like, you sound like a fascist. Like, well, I am a fascist. And you're just kind of listening, and you're thinking, this is, yeah, okay, interesting. It's like,
yeah, that's another show. That's another show put on by leftists to make right wingers look like a threat and look bad. That's what that show is.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, the guy that created it is Asian. We just saw this other Asian girl, and he does it to try to make white people and right wingers look crazy and get dunked on. That's what the guy that created that show, Jubilee, with the 1 verse 20, he's got all these tweets about Trump and a fascist and dictator and all stuff like that. So that's what the show's about. And that's what this is about.
That's really interesting. Like, again, it's dictating to the whole right wing. I know I'm not doing that, but it is interesting to think to yourself then that it's very easy right now with all the success that you've seen in the culture shift away from the woke. There's this feeling that we can quite easily have, and we can say to ourselves, based, we're winning. Our identity is now affirmed. And it's very easy for you to become a useful idiot for all sorts of things. Like some guy who just wants to run a show making you look like a dumbass, or even like these corporations who are trying to harvest your identity to their advantage, this type of thing. And that's interesting. Like, that is a big issue then, because the mob, the right wing identity is very much vulnerable to this. This is what I'm kind of pointing out, is that it's a unique vulnerability where if you can just say to someone like Black Sun, Hyperborea based, they'll just instantly, they'll be on your side, and then you can pull them hook, line, and sinker towards whatever goal that you need, which is, you know, maybe get your man in power or something like that. So it's what you've been saying, is that Trump is often like that, and people are not aware of this, and it seems like that's changed an awful lot recently.
Yeah, this feels like the Trump effect. There's been a shift since
wrote
Trump.
This ad to revive the Third Reich, but American Eagle absolutely knew what they were doing here. You don't get to drop lines about inherited traits, blue eyes, and great genes while zooming in on somebody that could have walked straight off of a Nazi propaganda poster and expect people not to catch that reference. Good genes,
They didn't see, this is how stupid they think they're so smart and like clever. They didn't expect you not to get the reference. It was overt. It's not like some subliminal thing.
That's a great point. That's actually such a good point, because it's like we would sit here and we would say to ourselves, do those idiots not realize that we just spotted their little trick? And then everybody's like, we're so red pill.
Yeah, she's like, I'm exposing the Nazis that put this dog whistle in this ad. Like, we're on to you. We see you building your Fourth Reich. Like, that's what she literally says.
It's like bait for a fish that she bites in it, and then she's so smart. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
racial purity in fascist circles, and now it's just denim marketing. We are watching fascist aesthetics sneak back into pop culture through fashion ads, trad wife influencers, and yes, now blue jeans. If you think this was an innocent ad, you have not been paying attention.
Exactly. I agree, guys. If you think this is...
The Sydney Sweeney Aryan Eagle ad is not only xenophobic and racist, it's also scientifically inaccurate. She says jeans often determine hair color and eye color. I'm sorry, often?
Always.
That's literally what they do. If they're not determining hair color and eye color, what is? It's giving red pill podcast bro with no marketing experience clearly running their ad department. And I just hate when companies make content.
Oh, that's
you don't think this hold on, you don't think this ad campaign got signed off by the Jewish CEO, by the way? How many? They probably paid her $20 million to do these commercials. What were you gonna say?
No, it was fucking. Well, that's. I just picked up on that. Now that you're pointing this out to me, I can see it. It's like, the self-conception, the world conception these ladies have is they're thinking to themselves, all right, so Joe Rogan, they consulted Joe Rogan, they consulted Chris Williamson or something like this, they consulted someone like me, and they're like, hey, so what type of ad should we run? And they're like, yo, you just get a girl with fucking big tits, and then that's how they thought it went down or something like this. But you're absolutely correct. It's like this was a group of Edward Bernays level shareholders sitting down and saying to themselves, all right, what's the best? There's so much different intention. That's
this is not about selling jeans. That's the biggest point. Like the Stone Toss comic, jeans. I'm pointing to the whiteboard. Selling more jeans. This is not about jeans. This is for this cultural effect.
I guess that's really fascinating as well. So that's the delusion that we would have on the right, because we would say go woke, go broke, and so we think that they all tried to go woke to sell jeans and then they failed. So now they're going back to blonde tits because that's what's going to sell. And it's just the whole misconception that they're at the very highest level. Actually, it's an enforcement of morality is what's going on. They're saying like, what is the ethical moral standards we want to propagate to create the culture via the corporate vehicles that we have to do this? That is the situation. That's like, it's so funny, but we kind of sound like leftists, which is quite interesting because we're talking about like, these structural mechanisms that create, propagate cultural, it's the culture industry that propagates out of these institutions. And this is what's going on with it, and it's very cynical in its approach. And yeah, like I think you're correct. I see what you're saying. It's really cool.
She even nails it with the podcast bros. You can see that what they say and how they're perceiving this ad to understand what the probably intended effect was.
With no marketing experience, clearly running their ad department. And I just hate when companies make content.
It's just some crypto Nazi running this ad campaign. Okay, I'm sure, lady. Yeah, some podcast bro red pillar decided to put out this ad. That's what's going on here.
To use medical or scientific terms and then completely fuck it up. Like, it's not that hard to Google what genes do, how DNA works.
Oh my God, she's just seething.
Do genes determine our traits, or do they always determine our traits?
Oh my gosh, talk about being pedantic.
That's wild. So that's like as I was pointing out earlier, like it is obviously significant that those people, like that girl, those ladies you were showing me, have this specific moral outlook where they do hate their own identity in many senses because of they've got this part of their brain shut off. They're the woke. They've got those liberal values. They're atheist. They don't like the affirmation of natural evolutionary identities, and they're against their tribe. They're actually like, they make a moral value out of being against their own tribe. And so that's a big psychological force, and it's something that seems to be getting exploited an awful lot by these people, very cynically. Which is, again, it's just such an eye-opener then to the whole dialectic of politics is such a waste of time because so much of it is literal low-level slop. And unless you come into it with this attempt to see the meta-narrative of what's going on, like you getting caught up in these things is like very stupid.